Today in the Nerdy Gritty, are video games too long?
One more world disappears inside it. Just another hopeless addict. World that makes a man insane. If the drums don't get you, the guitars will.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Nerdy Gritty, where we delve deep into the details of pop culture. I am your boy Fox.
I am Dez.
It's a good
I'm
one.
sorry, did that go too long?
You did it. Yeah, I need a shorter intro that's cheaper to make.
So a couple of weeks ago, last week we did, by the way, a NG Classic.
Yeah, Nerdy Gritty Classic. We brought you that classic flavor.
I was out of town, and then Fox pulled out one of our old episodes on the PS5, our predictions for the PS5.
From October 2018.
Hey, we record our episodes and then never listen to them again.
Yeah, why would we?
Let us know how we did on our predictions.
Yeah,
for the PS5. Yeah,
I made a few changes to the intro, but other than that, I didn't listen to it. So,
but 2 weeks ago we talked about cancel culture.
Yeah, specifically Harper's letter, and just kind of the whole topic in general.
And an article popped up recently that very much has to do with that. Tom King, who is what does Tom King do? Yeah.
He's a writer for.
He's
DC.
a writer for DC.
He's a big into. I think he does a lot of Batman.
Tom King tweeted recently that Jay Lee did comic covers for Comicsgate.
Basically, so Tom King is writing. That's what it is. He's writing a Rorschach series.
And Jay Lee did the cover
and Jay
of
Lee
that.
is doing a alt cover for it. And a variant for it.
Yeah.
So anyway.
And so he tweets that, if you guys don't know what Comicsgate is, it's kind of like Gamergate.
I had no idea until I saw his tweet.
Yeah, me too. But Comicsgate is people who say, hey, there's too much forced diversity in comics these days. Why can't we just let it be natural?
They're complaining that it's not a bunch of white guys.
Yeah, it's literally that.
It's literally that.
There's too much forced diversity. It's like, no, it's not forced diversity.
It's not forced. People exist.
Yes, these people are real.
It doesn't make any sense. And unlike Gamergate was like an event.
Well, and Gamergate started with something actually good, like with
unsubstantiated,
good
maybe, but it's all.
It went downhill real fast.
We're not trying. Yes, and then it just devolved into terrible things.
Yes,
Comicsgate is like an not an official organization. Nobody has a badge or anything, but it's like a whole thing. I saw somebody kind of defending them on Twitter that was just like, "No, we're not that. We're this," and it's like a group of people and not just an event. It's really interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, Tom King, one of the writers, tweeted that Jay Lee was a member of Comicsgate. Jay Lee then got a bunch of phone calls and messages and all kinds of other things, and Jay Lee had to stand and be like, no, I haven't, I don't even know what this guy is talking about. What's going on? And so here's the crazy part to me is just, this is specifically exactly what we were talking about last week, that one person's unsubstantiated claims could toss a huge monkey wrench into this guy and his wife's career. His wife is colorist. He is the artist. His wife is his colorist. And both of them were under scrutiny for a while. Tom King said that the two of them had a conversation and now they are, quote, all good. Jay Lee later on came back to said, no, we are not all good.
Yep.
I'm writing this because I'm angry. These irresponsible tweets are not harmless. They do not just go away. They have real world consequences. They can take away your job, your life, your memories. June, his wife, June and I were robbed of a special day. So no, we are not all good.
Yeah, it looks like Tom King's, I'm on his actual Twitter page, and it looks like that tweet was actually canceled. Or
Deleted. Yeah.
Well, canceled, I guess. But yeah, what I remember his tweet actually saying was a variant cover was drawn by this person, Jay Lee, who has drawn a cover for Comicsgate. I don't remember the actual tweet being like, this guy's a part of the organization, but it essentially is the same in like his perceived, at least, association is what made it. and he said basically that, hey, DC doesn't talk to the author about variant cover artists, so it wasn't my decision, and I don't approve. And it's weird. It's
frustrating.
It is. I don't even understand how they actually does Comicsgate. Here's my question: does Comicsgate like have comic books?
I have no idea. And you know what?
I don't even want to look them up enough to.
Exactly. Like part of me wants to live in ignorance of this, because whenever I find out that things like this are real, and then I look into it, I find out like people's mental gymnastics that they go through to justify these opinions, and it's just like I can't.
Let's get into some more interesting news, some more, I guess, actually very happy news on this first one.
Ooh, okay.
Hey, really great news. Nuclear disarmament has been achieved. Total nuclear disarmament has been achieved.
What video game is this in? Because I guarantee you it's not the real world.
Metal Gear Solid 5.
That's what I thought.
Also, it's only specifically the PS3 version.
So how does that work?
Here it is. So here's the thing. You know how like Metal Gear Solid 5 had some interesting online capabilities where you could like, a lot of games kind of do it, where you could interact with other people's games, but not in a direct way, kind of an indirect way. And so in Metal Gear Solid 5, you as a player can actually build nuclear weapons, or at least have like, I don't know exactly. I haven't played enough of it to really remember all the details of how it works, or at least they can come into your possession or something. They exist in the game. You can choose to make more or get more, or choose to disarm them. And apparently there was a semi-secret, I mean, not really secret, but a cutscene built into the game that when everybody across the entire platform, each platform has its own.
Yeah.
So
its own servers.
What just happened was a couple days ago, apparently every single nuclear device on the PS3 version of Metal Gear Solid 5 across all players had been disarmed. They hit 0. And a cutscene triggered, like, just said that was it was Big Boss, not Big Boss. One of the other characters basically making
Solid
this
Snake, liquid snake.
No, well,
gassy snake.
Gaseous snake, plasma snake. You know those two are probably in there somewhere. Well, Solid Snake's not even in Metal Gear Solid 5. It takes place in the 70s. Get your terrible Metal Gear Solid
you said
timeline
Big Boss,
right.
So I went for all of his his clones or whatever.
You're right, but Solid Snake is a clone of Big Boss. Anyway,
that's what I just said.
Look, get it right.
Metacritic, after the results of The Last of Us Part 2, Metacritic has made a pretty awesome decision, I think. Metacritic is delaying user reviews until 36 hours after a game is released. So we have discussed review bombing quite a lot.
Yeah.
And it seems like Metacritic is now trying to help circumvent it a little bit by not allowing people to play 30 seconds of a game, decide it's an SJW game, and then go review bomb it.
Sure. Or I mean, it's a good step that doesn't really solve anything, because now it's just 36 hours later that the review bomb happens.
I think it'll help a lot. I really do.
It's not like anybody's required to play the game to make leave a review on Metacritic anyway.
How often have you looked at like a comment on Facebook or Twitter or whatever else, been like, I'm going to respond to that because that annoys the crap out of me, walked away for a little bit, and then the next day you're not even thinking about it?
Sure. I mean, I understand, but I don't even think that's the motivation for a lot of review bombers. They see, this game has LGBTQ characters in it, and that's SJW, and I hate it. I'm going to give it a bad review so that it looks worse to people who want to play it, and maybe they don't sell as many copies. 36 hours later, they can still do that exact same thing.
I just think after 3 days, a lot of them will have said, I don't care, or moved on.
Maybe.
Or maybe not that they don't care, but they will have, like, their fervor for it will have died down.
Sure, yeah, bit. I mean, that's definitely possible, but the game comes out, it's not like they play an hour and then say, well, this game sucks now. Because they're, like, review bombing is, this was my huge problem with it, is not generally about the actual quality of the game.
Yeah. And I
by
would
them.
say that I'm at a point now where I literally don't even pay attention to user scores.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
User scores to me are useless.
Yeah, no, I that's not. Yeah, it's not really something I've ever. It's the irony of. I like looking at scores as a way to judge whether or not I'm gonna watch a movie, and then I like having my own opinion on it. But then
Right.
I consider user scores to be bad.
Yes.
So
It's because we're not users, Fox.
it's obviously because I know I like know about movies.
We know. Yeah.
I've watched
There are casuals.
lots of them.
There are casuals out there.
There are some people who just don't like. They just like don't really know like how to watch a movie. And so when I watch a movie, I like do it the right way.
Right, of course.
And so like I don't actually enjoy them. I watch them and I critique them. Okay.
Yeah. It's a chore, but one that
It's a
must
service
but
that
one
I provide.
There you go. Yes.
It's
a service.
Somebody has to do it.
I have been doing a lot of things, mostly movie watching though, but reading books. I guess I'll just start with I restarted the Aragon books, the Inheritance Cycle. Yep. And they're very good, and I really like them. I think what I like about them the most, and it really starts, and I just finished Aragon, I just started Eldest, is in Eldest, it hits that political strife the same way that The Witcher did.
The same way?
Well, in a similar way
Okay.
to The Witcher, where a lot of the tension is there's this whole power, vacuum, and who's going to fill that power vacuum. Here's what this person's doing. Here's what back way we can try. Oh, who's going to get the power? And like, I don't know why I dig that, man. It's real, real good.
It's because it makes it feel real. It makes it feel
It does.
yeah.
really grounds it in
fantasy
reality.
is a great concept for human stories, just like sci-fi.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. And so now I'm reading Eldest, and it's very good.
cool. Oh, you're taking a drink. Is it my turn to go or?
We usually go on like things like
You're right.
read
You said you had a
this,
few
I
books
watched
to read.
this, I have,
Okay, something that I read. So I've been reading Ghost of Tsushima, and
you've been reading Ghost of Tsushima?
I do. Yeah, I have the subtitles on. I'm
all right,
playing
fair
it in
enough.
Japanese, so I've been I've been playing it, but I read there's an article on Polygon, called Ghost of Tsushima, Kurosawa, and the Political Myth of the Samurai, and it basically talks about how it's an essay. It's long. It's hard to completely encapsulate what it's saying, but their intention was to tell this historically fictional story, but it's also an homage to like the works, the films of Kurosawa, who had a career of incredible samurai films that are like hold up today, that are just very well made. And what this article talks about is how the game visually absolutely holds up as far as like looking like a Kurosawa film, but it does also kind of fail in similar to how apparently this is what I might even be saying this incorrectly, but how Kurosawa and the idea of the samurai has been portrayed recently in modern times is really inaccurate, where they're at this point pop culture kind of views them like Eastern Knights, basically,
right.
like honorable soldiers going out to fight for their homeland, and that's not really it. Like they're kind of just ruthless warlords and violent.
Really?
All problems are solved through violence, and yeah, and so like it kind of romanticizes this past.
Watched a few movies. I will get to the one that I really want to critique last. I watched Fantastic Four, the newest one with
The
Michael
Josh
B.
Trank.
Jordan, and it
Fan
was
four stick.
it was not as bad as I thought it was going to be. It wasn't great though. It was bland. I don't know what it is about the Fantastic Four, but people just cannot make them interesting at all. A little bit better than that was Gemini Man with Will Smith and Will Smith, but as well
Will
as
Smith and young Will Smith.
and young Will Smith and the Fresh Prince.
There it is.
Literally, that's what I called them through the whole movie. One was Will Smith and the other one was the Fresh Prince.
Yep.
But have you seen that?
Yeah, I saw it
Yeah,
in theaters.
the CG was impressive, but you could still tell.
Oh, yeah.
There were little things here and there you could still tell.
The fact that there are 2 Will Smiths means you are never going to be fully in. Like, there's always going to be part of you knowing that's not real. Like, which is okay sometimes, but
I mean, there was still like Multiple Man with Michael Keaton back in the day that was hilarious, and
sure, but that was probably like multiple, like him actually
screen,
filming, yeah,
yes.
and just kind of inserted and not CG Michael
Right.
Keaton.
That's really what did
So
it
that's
was-
real Michael Keaton still. It's just 2 shots composited onto one.
But here's what I'll say: we're getting closer and closer to the day where we're not going to be able to tell. We really are getting closer to it.
I think we've already reached that.
And then I watched Dora and the Lost City of Gold.
Oh, one of these things is not like the other.
It was terrible.
Oh,
It was bad in so many ways. I watched the first like 10, 20, maybe even 20 minutes, and I'm like, this is funny. It's self-aware. It's mocking Dora, like, but also not being like dumb about it. Like, it's
sure.
it's clever. Like, there's one part in which it's the young Dora, and she looks at the camera and says, "Can you say delicioso?" And then it pans to the mom and dad, and they're like, "Who is she talking to?"
Yeah.
It was really good.
Funny little jokes.
Yeah, funny little things like that. But then it kind of turns into a coming of age-esque high school story. Like, she goes to high school, a real high school, and
Yeah.
he has to make friends and things like that, and gets made fun of, whatever, blah blah blah. And you're meant to feel sad for her, and now you're kind of starting to take it seriously. But then they get kidnapped and sent to the jungle, and then it gets kind of weird.
Then it becomes a Dora episode.
And then there's a CG anthropomorphic fox with a mask on.
Swiper's in there?
Yes, he is.
He's not like a dude who's...
Nope. Voiced
Oh.
by Benicio del Toro. Swiper the Fox is in this, and it's never talked about.
Well, the movie I watched this week was My Cousin Vinny.
Yes.
A hilarious... I had never seen it
love
before.
That movie so much.
Never seen it before, and my wife is in law school, and I was like, well, that's a movie about the legal process. So let's watch it together. And
It's a movie about the law and the lulls.
The lulls, yes. It was a hilarious film.
Yes.
It
It's
was a
so
very,
funny.
very funny movie. Dang. Like, the whole time I was just thinking, like, what's his name? The main character.
Joe Pesci?
Joe Pesci. He's got the one he's got the one character, obviously.
Yeah.
It's just like the director was just like, be that guy. We're just gonna laugh at you instead of be terrified that you're gonna murder somebody.
Right.
You're still gonna threaten to kill people. We're just gonna find it hilarious, you know? And I finished Atlanta season 2 today. Donald Glover's TV show.
Yeah.
And it's so good.
Yeah.
I mean, part of it is it's his intention when writing and creating this show was, I'm going to make a show about black people that white people could never make because they do not understand. And so that obviously came through in a whole lot of it.
Right.
Like, it's just kind of, it's actually the whole time, or the last couple episodes, I was like, oh yeah, now that makes sense. Like, I'm kind of, because I've been learning a whole lot lately about just the black experience in America, and like, okay, yeah, all right, I see that, yeah.
I think Jordan Peele did a good job with that in Get Out, where there's just this, like, it created this weird fear that, or an understanding of this weird fear that whenever a person of color walks into a room full of white people, you feel just a little bit off. Like,
Right. And
it
yeah,
portrayed that so
Get Out did it well, where the fear was obviously of what's happening in the show, but also a meta fear for a lot of viewers of, oh no, am I the one doing that? Well, that's all I've got.
That's all I've got. Shall we get down to that nerdy gritty?
Let's talk about it. But before we get there, I want to take a quick minute here to talk about our Patreon. If you are hearing this part of the Nerdy Gritty, that means you are listening to what we call, I guess, the short version. But if you would like to hear more of what we talk about toward the beginning, the reviews and our news articles, things like that, we have what's called the Director's Cut. We typically do cut that part down to make it a little more manageable, to keep the episodes a little shorter.
For the casual listener.
For the casual listeners, the ones who don't want to hear us ramble on for an hour and a half for some reason. But if you're one of those people, hey, why?
Hey,
and also,
we love to hear
we
ourselves
also,
randomly.
yeah, we do. If you would like to hear more of the nerdy gritty, more of our reviews, longer reviews, things like that, you can head over to our Patreon. That's patreon.com/dezandfox. We have 3 tiers, and if you become a patron at tier 2 or tier 3, you gain access to the director's cut. You'll also gain access to additional behind-the-scenes, bonus content, lots of stuff on there, and we appreciate any level of support you can give. And if you can't, we understand things are a little uncertain right now. We do appreciate any kind of support, whether that's just listening and enjoying, or even just sharing and liking or subscribing to any of our channels, whether that's YouTube or SoundCloud or anywhere where we have a platform. Thank you so much for listening. I'm getting so close to the end here. Thank you so much for listening. We love your support. I'm doing a lot of editing. I don't know what's going on with me. Maybe you should do this from now on. Thank you.
This has been this.
5 minutes.
Fox is he's been trying so long. Thank you for listening, you guys. Let's get down to the nerdy gritty.
Recently, a question has been asked to the gaming community through a few different platforms. Somebody was talking about it on Twitter. An actual former Sony executive talked about his opinion on it, their opinion on it. But the question is, are video games too long? That's a pretty big question. Like, it's a pretty generic question.
Right.
But the gist is here that are the games that are being made now too long, both to enjoy because of people's growing schedules, or and also too long for their own good, because a longer game generally
Costs more money.
Costs more to make and means you put out less games and takes a lot more resources. So what we want to talk about today is beyond just like, do I want games shorter or not? Are games too long for their own good, and would the gaming community at large benefit from an expectation of shorter video games?
This is poignant because we recently finished Days Gone.
Yes.
And if you watch us play the whole playthrough of it, all 85 episodes or whatever, 84 episodes.
By the time we get like halfway through that, we're already like, wow, this is a longer game than we thought.
So it happens to Fox first. It really does. And I'm okay.
Sure.
Probably like episode 60. I'm like, I'm still enjoying this game.
Yeah.
But then it gets to like 65, 70, 80.
Yeah.
And I'm like, be done.
There were
already.
several days when we got together to record, and it was like, oh, we'll finish it today. Oh, guess not. It's just so many times where it felt like it should be over. And so that's why we want to talk about it, is because it's actually pretty relevant. That's not the newest game out there, but it does kind of bring up that idea of how would a game benefit, would games in general benefit from being shorter? And so before we get into any, I guess we got to kind of talk about some specifics, but let's talk about personal preference before we get into that. So for you, Dez, you have a very different life situation.
Yeah.
You have kids.
Yep.
You have, you have a different situation than I do, and probably less time to play video games. When you buy a new game and put it in, what's the, I guess, ideal length? What do you look for in how long a game takes to play?
I prefer shorter games. I really do. In fact,
okay, so let's make it actual real though.
Yeah.
How long is a short game for you?
I really enjoy like 5-hour games.
Okay.
But we know that because I like indie games.
Sure,
I really do.
sure.
Games that kind of like do something new or try something different or tell a really short but important story.
Yeah.
But that also means that I can beat this game in 2 sittings usually. And because which for me is usually about 2 weeks. I only get about 2 or 3 or 1 or 2 times a week to actually sit down and just play video games.
Have an actual session.
Without interruption. And so, it means a lot to me when I can consume an entire story in like 5 hours.
Okay.
What about you?
That makes sense to me. I mean, I definitely appreciate when a game is short and does its thing in when the length of it feels appropriate. That goes for all kinds of different lengths. But
right.
I think I generally do like longer games. And I think that, again, has something to do with the genre I typically play.
Mm-hmm.
I love giant open world games. I love huge JRPGs. And so when I get into those games, I'm expecting, with a JRPG, if there's not like 70 hours of content, I'm just like, oh, okay. And that's not really the game's fault typically. it's because I have certain expectations of what a JRPG. You know, Final Fantasy X
Right.
was a like a habit forming game for me, and that's a pretty long game.
Yeah.
And so now when I play something in the same genre, I have a certain expectation. Or like a big open world game, lots of stuff to do. Lots of collectibles to find that are going to maybe even artificially lengthen the game because it's not really the actual story that it's telling. It's just something to do that wouldn't really have an impact otherwise. But I think I do enjoy a longer game than you do. And I completely appreciate the idea that a shorter game can do
Right,
something.
right. And I think that we're going to agree on that point, that longer games have their merit and shorter games have their merit.
Sure.
And it's in the exact same way that TV shows and movies have their merit.
Right.
That's just the way the world works. But maybe we should go through this in a, why don't you take long games and I'll take short games.
Okay.
Since we're in that area.
Pros and cons?
Yeah, pros and cons and things like that. So because here's... And I'm going to lean into kind of what they were talking about before. Here's a lot of the reasons why I love short games.
Sure.
Is small teams produce these things and they put their heart and their soul into it, but it doesn't dominate their life. So you can get 10 people together and create an incredible game. Just this beautiful, memorable thing. Or one person even.
Yeah.
You know, you get like Undertale. You know,
Stardew Valley.
Yeah. One person builds this beautiful, wonderful piece of art that people experience. I mean, it doesn't take long to beat, but people spend that much time on it. People have beaten Undertale 100,000 times,
Right.
over and over again,
And it
because
has a
they
huge
love it.
impact on them, regardless of how long it is.
Right. And the ability to have a small team to come around, create a very quality product, and create great content, memorable, world-changing in some ways, genre-defining content.
Yeah.
Why not get more of that? Like, what we got a team of, hundreds over here at Naughty Dog or CD Projekt Red. They're making great games. They really, really are. But that's one incredible, wonderful, spectacular game, or 30 incredible, wonderful, spectacular games.
Sure. Yeah. I think I agree there. Like, it makes sense. There was a movie reviewer that I watched that basically made a sarcastic video about the new what was the
Artemis Fowl.
no
That quality film.
it was the new, what's the classic Spartacus. No, not Spartacus, the classic one
Clash
with
of the Titans.
no the classic one with the chariot race. You know, remember
Prince
that?
of Egypt.
Okay, sure. Whatever. Basically, they were saying they spent $100 million in this movie that nobody ever cared about, and they knew that going in.
I don't even know what you're talking
You're
about.
right. It doesn't matter. It was a movie that, people. It was. It came out and it bombed horrifically and lost a lot of money. And they could have taken $100 million and given $1 million to 100 different creators who all had very good visions and were, and some of them would have failed and a lot of them would have made their money back and they would have made more money. Like,
it's the Netflix strategy.
Yeah.
It really is. And Netflix is showing how
Ben-Hur. It was Ben-Hur.
there was a
remake of Ben-Hur.
No idea.
Yeah, and it bombed horrifically. Came out a couple years ago. Had Morgan Freeman in it with dreadlocks.
Wow. You just blew my mind. No idea. But yeah, the Netflix strategy is showing this because a couple of years ago, you and I were talking about Netflix just, shotgun, hit as many things as possible and maybe one of them will be good.
Right.
You know what's happened over the course of those 2 years? 60% of them are good now.
They've gotten more refining and have a better shotgun
And
spread.
now we were a long time ago saying Netflix is screwed once Disney Plus comes out. Netflix is fine.
Netflix is perfectly fine.
They are fine, and they are flourishing. Because they have found a way to be able to make quality content, taking wider ranging, smaller snippets.
Right.
One season of a very quality thing, make it be done. One movie, make it be done. Okay, let's take the money we make from that and put it towards something else now and spread it out. And Netflix has done a great job of that. And I generally think games could benefit from that.
Sure, yeah, that makes sense to me. I do think, though, that there is a place for epic, sprawling video game tales. Those huge games.
Right.
Because just because they are longer does not mean that they are inherently worse.
Right.
And Witcher 3 is a massive game and also tells a beautiful story filled with interesting characters, a sprawling tale, fun little mini games, fun side quests, and it is an inherently different game than The Witcher 3 that is a 3-hour indie game that tells maybe the same story just in a much smaller. Like, there's something to be said about the time and effort it takes to create something massive. I would, if we're going to go with the movie comparison, I compare it to like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Endgame was what, 300 million, 500 million, a ridiculous price.
Yes.
But it created something that could not be done on a tiny little budget. This epic feeling, that moment of coming through the portals, and that like Captain America saying, it creates this moment that will last. It's considered by some to be the last like huge cinematic moment.
Yeah.
That if you were there in the theater to watch it, you will understand it much differently than somebody who will just watch it on
when
TV.
Somebody says Avengers assemble,
right.
Today that has the same impact as No, I Am Your Father.
Right. It's
really
like
does.
this moment that just, it's beyond just what's happening in the movie. It's this like buildup of years and this like culmination of something that if it was just a simple indie team, indie filmmaker somewhere with a tiny budget could not do.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is a fact of the industry that to do certain things, you need a certain amount of budget and a certain size of team and things like that. And so I agree with you that you could make lots of great games for a smaller amount of money compared to one great game with a big amount of money, but you could not achieve something that you can make with that higher amount of money.
I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit here. I actually kind of will agree with what I'm going through here, but there's a fundamental difference between movies and video games, though, because when you watch a movie, you're not going to have 10 minutes of that movie be, oh, Captain America has now got to go chase down 10 Womp Rats or whatever.
He's just going to fight 10 Hydra goons,
right?
Or a fetch quest or something.
Exactly. So you talked about The Witcher 3. What percentage? I never played it. What percentage of The Witcher 3 would you have deemed fun, awesome, great to play, but for the overall story to be impactful, actually kind of unnecessary?
For the actual overall story, I would say most of the game's content. If all you're talking about is the actual story of like the main story of the game,
and for it to impact you the way it does, because there are some side quests that will build characters.
There are some side quests that are arguably better than the main quest.
Absolutely,
that I remember better than the main quest.
And so
the Bloody Baron.
Leave those types of things in there that really help tell great stories or really help character build, but kind of useless things. Like how many pointless, useless things did we do in Days Gone?
No, yeah, I agree that oftentimes what makes these big epic games is nothing useful. Like, it's content to do, and you might even enjoy doing it, but it doesn't actually contribute to the reason why that game is remembered. So yeah, I agree with you there. Like, it's Days Gone, and I think that's a big thing for me in how a game feels too long, because I actually think that's the question here. I actually think that's the thing at hand, is not how long it takes on average to beat a game, but how long it feels to beat that game. Because, like, I have put more time in many games than I have Days Gone, but it felt like nothing compared to it.
Right.
Days Gone artificially lengthened its story so much by
really
putting you on like a whole lot of what should have been side quests at most, or just not in the game. And so, like, and it artificially lengthened it by making you drive places that you've been to 100 times, or even just the quick travel, rather than here's a cutscene, you're already there. Like, the game felt longer than it actually took to beat, and it took a long time to beat.
Yes.
So I think that's the real issue, is because you never hear these things like, the games of the year vary wildly in how long they take to beat. And there's never an argument of, well, that game was like, yeah, Breath of the Wild was amazing, but it took me 200 hours to do everything, so it was actually bad. No, you loved those 200 hours, and it was great. Because
people who wanted
more.
200 hours in and started over again.
Yeah, exactly. And so the question to me is not necessarily, is there an arbitrary length of game that's now it's bad because of it? I don't think anybody's trying to make that argument, but I do think that it's really more of how engaging the time you spend playing it is. Because a game that is an hour playing Gone Home can be just as engaging for some people as a 70-hour JRPG, because it relies on so many emotional things, because you can connect with Days Gone Home, both set in Oregon.
Very different
both
game.
set in Oregon. All right, I'm creating an Oregon gaming universe. You can connect with Gone Home on a much more personal level than you might possibly connect to Geralt being the Witcher of Destiny. And so you playing an hour of Gone Home can have a much greater impact on you.
Man, Gone Home is good.
It's a great game. It's
so
a well-made
good.
game, and it was such a simple tale told very succinctly, and didn't have any extra fat.
Right.
And so, yeah, but that's really because it didn't feel like it needed to. And long games can feel that same exact way.
Mm-hmm.
A huge game can feel that same exact way.
I will say, though, I do think part of the argument is, yes, you can spend 200 hours in Breath of the Wild and it's fun and it's enjoy it, but also you could spend 100 hours in Breath of the Wild, it's fun and you can enjoy it, and money that you would have spent on Breath of the Wild and resources you would have spent on Breath of the Wild could be put other places to grow more product, do more things. And again, I'm playing devil's advocate here. At the end of this
you're
podcast,
right.
we're
Actually,
talk about
let's
this
get
a lot,
into So Sean Layden, he is a former chairman of Sony Interactive Entertainment Worldwide. He says, I would welcome the return of the 12 to 15 hour game. This is him talking to a reporter at VentureBeat. I would welcome the return of the 12 to hour 15 game. The cost of creating games has increased. Some studies show that's gone up 2 times every time a console generation advances.
Yeah.
The problem with that model is that it's not sustainable. Major AAA games in the current generation go anywhere from 80 million to 150 million or more to build, and that's before marketing. It's a huge upfront cost. Extended over time, it takes 3 or 4 or 5 years to build a game while you're not getting any return from the investment. You just continue to pay into it looking for the big payoff at the end. I don't think in the next generation you can take those numbers and multiply them by 2 and expect the industry to continue to grow. That's a huge thing that we don't even consider often. We just consider the actual gameplay itself. And I think a lot of this comes back to what we expect as the gaming audience, as the consumer in the gaming industry.
Right.
It is a detriment to the industry for me to say Final Fantasy 16 has to have 75 hours or it's not good. I probably wouldn't say that out loud, but part of me would say, well, it was just short.
Yeah.
And I don't like it that much. I wish it was longer. And that shouldn't be necessarily a critique. It can be, but if I was engaged by the 40-hour storyline instead of a 75-hour, then that's a great game.
A lesson that I learned as a youth pastor for so long about events is you want your events, whatever event you put on for people, to be long enough that they feel they got their money's worth or time's worth.
Sure.
But short enough that they leave wishing there could have been more.
Wishing they had more.
Excited for the next time it's going to happen. Because right now, you and I probably are, if they came out, announcement of Days Gone 2, we'd probably both be like, okay.
No, thank you. I'll wait till it's on sale.
Yeah. But you know what? If Dave's Gone would have been...
Dave's gone?
If
Where'd he go?
Gone,
No,
Dave's not here,
Dave!
man. Come back later.
Please.
That's the Cheech and Chong bit I'm getting into now. Days Gone would have been 20 hours shorter or even 10 hours shorter.
Sure.
We'd probably be more excited
We
about
talked
that.
about it in our playthrough where there's a point in the game where you go south.
Right.
And you basically
Open up
hook
a
up
whole new
with an
area.
entirely new part of the game, entirely new faction of people that
It
you had
feels
no
like
interaction.
DLC.
And it felt like, wait a minute, why didn't they chop this off, turn it into a $30 expansion? I would have been like, it would have taken the same amount of time, but I would have been much more excited.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they would have had to chop and screw the story a little bit for whatever, but like making me, quote unquote, making me play all of this instead of cutting it into 2 and possibly making more money because I'm now paid $90 instead of $60. It felt like it would have been a better idea because I would have gotten that. I would have felt more satisfied with the time length because too long is a thing also.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there really is a balance that needs to be set there. Yes, we agree that some stories take time to tell, and they're beautiful, incredible stories. But so much of video games is spent padding those stories and filling those stories, and you could be using that money otherwise. I mean, let's take Naughty Dog, for example. Last of Us 2 came out, and it's very, very good.
Yeah.
We're both enjoying. It's not the right word. We're both very much.
I'm enjoying the game. It's not a fun story.
Right. We're both very invested in what's going on,
right.
and it's great. It really is. What game came out before this? It was a Uncharted 4?
Uncharted 4 was, well, technically Uncharted Lost Legacy.
Lost Legacy?
But then the major one, that was kind of a side thing that took like 20 hours.
Still like 3 or 4 years ago? Lost Legacy?
Yeah, it took them a while. Oh, you're talking about time in between. Yeah, it took a
Right.
while. It took a good long while.
What this guy is saying is, from that point to now, no new games were making money for them.
Right.
They have to act like farmers, essentially. A farmer makes all their money in harvesting season.
Right.
All of their money is right there and selling.
Yeah.
And then,
for the most part.
right.
But
and then they don't make any money for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
And they have to like branch that out. And it's the same thing with huge companies like Last of Us 2 or CD Projekt Red that make these huge games. Is when they make all that money, they have to budget that out.
Sure. They have other streams of income, of course.
Right.
CD Projekt Red has like GOG and whatever. But yeah, you're right. Like, there's a lot of dead time. Any particular game itself, if we just narrow our focus to a game, what you're saying is that 99%, all of its development, disregarding like DLC is something that comes
Right.
after, but there's no money being made. It's entirely money being spent.
Yep.
And so the longer it takes to make this massive game, because people have expectations of it being a certain length or size, means that's more time where they are not making money, which means it's just a kind of a recursive cycle. Like
right.
this
in a negative way.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what
it's what he's saying.
What's his name?
Sean Layden.
What Sean Layden is saying here is that's not going to be sustainable.
No.
You're going to run out eventually.
Right.
And
so, yeah,
I think that's true.
This is true in the movie industry as well. Like, it's a weird new thing where people are like, major companies are investing a heavy amount of money hoping that they make $1 billion back from it, rather than trying to just put out a bunch of here's the weird disconnect, is that the quality of the game, like the enjoyment that we can get out of a game, really has nothing to do with the actual amount of hours that we play.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the weirdest part, because it's just like this weird thing that we've put into our brains of, well, I got a lot of content out of it, but like that does not mean that we enjoyed it more. It might, I don't know. Like, it's a weird disconnect that's been fueled by mostly the consumer.
Yes.
I would imagine that game companies, pretty much every executive who reads this is probably going to say, yeah, I wish we could do that too. That sounds awesome. I would rather put a smaller amount of money into a shorter game because it means that we can sustain ourselves. And I know the people we have making our games, and they would make a great 15-hour game. That game that they would make out of that is still possibly just as good, because the length has no direct impact on how good a game is. So this, I think, is more of an indictment on the consumer than it is the actual industry.
And there are a lot of problems with the consumer and developer relationship in video games. And we've talked about this before.
Right.
The expectations of the consumer, we need to just deal with it sometimes.
Right.
We need to learn that, you know what? Games are going to get delayed sometimes.
Yeah,
you know what?
Sure.
This game that you really expected for is going to be 20 hours this time, not 50. Like, you know what? That's the world. deal with it. Like, it's just
Well, yeah, I
deal with
mean,
it.
the problem is that, okay, we'll deal with it by just not giving you our money.
But we still will.
Sure, that's fair.
We still will.
I understand. This is what's, I think it also has a direct impact on like things like crunch, because it's not only people want our game, it's we're spending money on this game before it even comes out, so let's get it out faster, which means let's make our developers work ridiculous, terrible, torturous hours to make it happen, or we fire them. Like, again, that's a lot of that is because of us. Not entirely. You
Right.
can't remove the blame from the people forcing them to do that.
Right.
But if there was less of a demand of massive games that take 6 or 7 years to make, and rather a smaller game that takes 2 or 3, then crunch could be less of an issue.
Yep.
That kind of thing. Like, there's so many it's a multifaceted issue.
And for a lot of reasons, it's because we also have to bring in the point that some games cannot be told in 12 to 15 hours. Some stories need that time. You know, we're probably 20 hours into Last of Us Part 2 right now.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine them chopping off any part of this right now.
I could see them making the actual, like, in between the story beats a little shorter, but none of the actual story that's been told.
But you don't want it to be a Kojima game
You're
where
right.
it's mostly watching and less playing.
You're right. It's pacing. Really is what it is, because if it's just, okay, killed 3 guys, next story, or, you know, next thing, and then I sit there and watch for 20 minutes, like, there's so many things to it, because pacing is such an issue.
It really
is. It's how
is.
we feel like something was too short or too long. Metal Gear Solid games are really fun to play, but if it takes me, you know, if I'm watching the game for 35 hours or however long, then you might enjoy that, but it's going to feel like the game's too long because you're sitting there watching it rather than playing it.
It's the Death Stranding problem.
It's the Death Stranding problem.
The pacing in Death Stranding was terrible.
I think it's the same with Red Dead Redemption 2, where there's so much finite detail to everything that happens that just playing the game, even like opening a cabinet, feels like it takes too long. And that's a tiny detail of the overall game, and it just kind of multiplies and just compounds on itself. And so, yeah, there's so many things to it in, like, finding what needs to take time and what doesn't.
And this is why I want to laud Last of Us Part 2 more, is they're telling an incredible story. It's necessary. I don't feel at any point that it's tried to stretch it at all. I think everything has felt very natural. The combat is good. The exploration is wonderful. But we laughed at it recently where she'll sometimes just no scope pick up items. Her arms will just fly backwards, grab something.
That's a good point.
And because you know what? They don't want to have you take a second
kneel
to
down,
stand up.
pick up a thing, put it in your bag, stand back up.
Right.
That's what you do in Red Dead, and it sucks.
And so they've done such a good job pacing this game.
Yeah.
Everything feels great. And you know what? If it goes on another 5-10 hours, great.
Right.
Okay. As long as the story feels good. To make this story what it is, it needs that time.
Yeah.
It does need that time.
Spend the time on what's important.
Yes. And so really that's where I fall at the end of this, is find out what your story is and what your goal is, and don't pad it at all. Because really it's going to be between, we talked about movies before, Marvel movies, Infinity War and Endgame. Infinity War, my struggle, and a lot of people struggle, that was the pacing. It was too fast. It was jammed together. It wasn't a well pieced together movie. Its pacing was way too quick. They tried to go through too much, way too fast, and it just it suffered for it.
I disagree, but I understand.
Right. And well, then that's a critic, like
sure.
a high critic.
Whatever. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
But on the other side, Endgame took its time.
Yeah, it was real slow at the beginning.
Every moment.
And then built up to this massive moment.
Right, and it's beautiful for it. It's incredible for it. And games can do both of these things. Smash together, stretch it out, or take exactly as long as you need.
Right.
Gone Home needed an hour. And it did
a great job.
Oh my gosh. Whereas Last of Us Part 2 needs 25 hours or whatever.
Sure.
And it's doing a great job with it. Days Gone did not need 40 hours or whatever it ended up being.
Yeah.
It didn't need that at all.
However long it took us.
Yeah. So
I think at the end of this, I think I do generally agree with what he's saying.
Yeah.
I think games are too long. But not necessarily because the games themselves are like boring because they take too long. I don't have the problem with Days Gone or the problem that I had with Days Gone with most games I play.
Right.
I think they are too long from an industry standpoint. Like, no, I would rather companies that are making good games be able to sustain themselves. And so for the expectations that are placed upon them to be lessened, I think it's a burden for the industry that we as a gamer say this has to be a huge game.
I think that I know that this is tough to say about small development companies, but publishers or larger development companies, I think should go the Netflix route, where they say, you know what, we're going to make 15 games and 12 of you are going to be 3-hour little things here and there, team of 15 people, and 3 or 4 of you are going to be our big boys, and we're going to skim 10% off of all of our little boys and scoop it over to the big boys here, just so you guys know.
Sure, there's a lot there that we don't know how it actually works, but I do think kind of Xbox seems to be kind of doing that.
Yeah, I was thinking the exact
same
thing.
With them buying all these different studios
Ninja
and
Theory
giving
and
them
Double
the
Fine
resources they
like that.
need to do what they do. I think that's true. I also think the other thing I was thinking, like, there's this expectation of these big games, big sprawling worlds, big explorable open world kind of games. And if a game were to come out today that was like had the money and had the resources that a AAA game has, but does the classic, okay, level 1 you completed it, load screen, level 2 you complete it, has that more like episodic thing. I'm thinking like GoldenEye.
Yeah,
like that still exists. That is The Last of Us 2.
Yeah,
it just doesn't have a big loading screen where it shows your stats in between.
Yeah.
We just have different sections of the game that we just play at a certain time. It just more naturally flows between those levels with cutscenes.
Linear gameplay,
Yeah, and so, but it's still almost just as linear. There's a part at the beginning that's kind of open world, but that went away pretty quick. And so, like, do those things. Like, man, it's...
Naughty Dog crushes that.
They do it really well. I mean, they basically do that with
Uncharted.
With Uncharted, even to a greater degree.
Crush it. They
and
really
so,
do.
I think, largely, this whole time, just be like, it's our fault, guys. Like, that's my fault that the companies have these expectations. Like, I'm pumped for giant cyberpunk open world gameplay. I might need to lessen that, like, like maybe it should be smaller and more of an impact kind of thing.
And this is where I have found such like a deep love for indie games.
Sure, yeah.
And it's so wonderful to be able to experience a story. And there are indie games that I appreciate as much, if not more, than any other AAA game.
Yeah.
Hellblade is an indie game. I mean, sure, it was like 18 hours or something like that, but... Oh my gosh, is one of my...
It was by definition indie. It did not have the backing of a major publisher.
But it was one of the greatest games ever made, in my opinion.
Yeah.
One of the most important games ever made. And so I think that focusing on what you want to make and trimming it down into its essential parts, but still the ability to flow smooth. Stop stuffing in that filler. Stop having a team of 50 people on side quests. Stop having a team of however many people trying to find how many sheep skins you can collect or whatever else.
Whoa. That's important. The Witcher 3 had a quest where I had to go find a goat and bring it back to its owner. And it's iconic. That actually happened.
Is it iconic because it's dumb?
It's iconic because it's funny. Yes.
There you go. That's my points.
Yeah, but it still resonates. It still sticks with me. I still remember it.
Yeah. So anyway, I think that I don't want to say that games are too long. I think there are plenty of games out there that are exactly the length that they need to be. But I will say that there are plenty of games that can cut down their fat and their studio will benefit for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Well, guys, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for your support. Hey, let us know what you think about games and their length. Let us know if you think they're too long, too short, or just right. That Goldilocks.
That Goldilocks dilemma.
So let us know your opinion. Thank you for Granger. Thank you, Lord, for Granger.
Thank you, Lord, for this Granger you have blessed us with.
They are very good. Also, thank you to Granger for the use of our theme song, All My Friends Have Wi-Fi, and some of my neighbors do too, off of the album
most
Dear
of my
Sam.
neighbors do too.
You know what? No, we're not going to get it. It's fine. I'm about to say my neighbors do too, but I'm kind of in a weird area that I don't pick up on anybody else's Wi-Fi. Anyway.
This is something to talk about.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Granger. Your music is good.
You should go check out our YouTube channel. We got lots of playthroughs going on right now. Code Vein, is Dez's playthrough. My 120% walkthrough of Spyro the Dragon is going up right now. Just the first game, but I do have all 3 finished and ready to go. So that's going to go up. And then, of course, our Days Gone playthrough finished recently. But if you want to spend a long, long time watching a playthrough,
84 episodes,
it's there.
20 to 30 minutes per episode.
But our Last of Us 2 playthrough is also going up as we're playing it. And then I believe I'm going to start putting up my Ghosts of Tsushima playthrough. I've gotten a good chunk of the game
nice.
right in the can, ready to post. So yeah, we got lots of stuff on there, all kinds of videos.
Thanks again for listening, guys, and always remember that save games save lives.
Bye.
My voice sings louder.